Hi, everyone. This is Debbie Vornholt with Commonsense Landlording. So this is part 2 of understanding the Section 8 voucher. So in the previous video, I talked about how to screen a voucher applicant. So here is an example of well, actually 3 different examples of vouchers that Section 8 is provided in the owner packet. And I know it's kind of hard to read here, but this is what we've got. So this will tell you how everything is broken down. So box 1 is the number of bedrooms this person is approved for. And it's kind of hard to see, but it talks about the rent here. So these are the 2 numbers that I've been talking about in the previous video. So it's got the base rent, and then it's got the maximum gross rent. And that's the number that we need to look at. So if someone, for example, wants to rent your property, and in example 1, if the rent is $800, this person doesn't qualify because the max rent is $763. Now, if your rent is anything under $763, this person will qualify. The voucher will cover the rent, and they will qualify on the voucher. That doesn't mean that they meet your credit requirements, the income requirements or anything else. This simply means that as of right now, the voucher will cover the rent. So the very first thing that I do when I pre-screen, before they're allowed to tour the property, I require them to snap a picture of this part of the voucher and text it to me, because I have to see these numbers. They don't usually know a lot of times what the numbers mean, even though they get this explanation. This is the tenant explanation, understanding and using your voucher. So it's up to you to know what to look for. And in this case, the $763 is the maximum amount of rent that the voucher will cover. So if your rent's below this number, the voucher will cover it. If the rent is above it, it won't. Same with these other examples. The maximum amount of rent in example 2 is $930. If your rent is above $930, this voucher will not cover the rent, and this person is disqualified. If it's anything under $930, the voucher will cover the rent, and you can then move forward with your other screening criteria. And example 3, the maximum rent is $1,299. This is for a 3-bedroom. Same rules apply. If your rent on your property is higher than $1,299, this person will not qualify. The voucher won't cover it. Anything below that, move forward and do your other qualifying criteria. Is the income 3 times the rent? I talked in the other video. The other thing that I ask is how much Section 8 is going to pay, and how much is the tenant going to pay of the rent. So for an easy example, the one I always use, rent's $1,000. The voucher is $1,000 rather. And that's what the rent is. Section 8's agreed to pay $700. The tenant has to then pay $300. And this can only come from Section 8 because it's going to depend on whether they have a job, how much money they make. So you may have a situation where Section 8 pays all of the rent. They pay the entire amount. You can't have an income requirement. We just had this discussion online a few days ago, and there is nothing you can do about that. If Section 8 pays all of the rent, you can't have an income requirement. I don't like that, but there's nothing I can do about that. So then go through the rest of your criteria. You all know me. I have credit score requirements. I have credit requirements. Do they have evictions? Do they owe a previous landlord? All of these things that I use across the board for every applicant. This isn't just for my Section 8 people. So whatever you do, make sure that for fair housing, you do the same thing for every single person. You have to treat these people just like everyone else. Okay. But the income requirement, you have to figure differently. So if this person, I'm going back to our $1,000 example, and Section 8 pays $700, and the tenant pays $300, then you can only require income of $900, $300 times 3. Okay. So know how to figure that. And as I always say, wherever you're at, doesn't matter what state, what city you're in, know the laws in your area. This is a federal program, and the laws are pretty much the same, but they are administered differently in different areas. So you are not allowed, when you read your paperwork, you are not allowed to charge the tenant extra. above and beyond what the voucher will cover. That is against the law. And I know people do it. It's a risk that you take. There's a lot of penalties involved if you do that. These people are on subsidized housing, subsidized payments. The government pays their rent. You are not allowed to charge them more than the voucher. So if the voucher doesn't cover the rent, you either need to lower your rent or you need to disqualify them. So if you have any questions, let me know. Section 8, there's always lots of questions on this, and I'll have another video because there's been some changes to the lease requirements, and I will talk about that in another video. But I'll post this. Be sure you ask any questions, and hopefully you found this helpful.